You've been talking yourself into weakness your entire life and you don't even realize it. Every explanation you offer when none was asked for, every justification you provide to people who haven't earned your reasoning, every word you use to fill uncomfortable silence, all of it is leaking power. Words are the currency most people spend recklessly, devaluing themselves with each unnecessary sentence, each defensive explanation, each attempt to be understood by those who have no right to understand. And the worst part is you think you're being reasonable, being open, being communicative. But what you're actually doing is volunteering for subordination. You're teaching people that you can be pressured into explaining yourself, that silence makes you uncomfortable enough to break it, that you need their understanding badly enough to chase it. Meanwhile, there are people who move through the world saying almost nothing, and rooms reorganize around them. Their silence creates gravity that pulls attention, commands respect, generates a fear that has nothing to do with threat and everything to do with the unsettling presence of someone who cannot be read, cannot be manipulated through social pressure, cannot be made to fill space with nervous energy. These people understand something that talkers never learn. Power lives in the gap between stimulus and response, and every premature word is power surrendered. The strategic absence of self-defense. The instinct to defend yourself when accused or questioned is one of the deepest patterns of social conditioning, and it's one of the most disempowering. Every time you rush to defend yourself, to explain your choices, to justify your actions to someone who hasn't earned the right to judge them, you're accepting their frame. You're agreeing that you're on trial, that they're the judge, that you owe them an accounting of yourself. This acceptance of subordinate position happens in the moment you open your mouth to defend, rather than remaining silent in the face of accusation. The psychology of refusing defense involves recognizing that defense is an admission of the legitimacy of the attack. When someone accuses you of something and you immediately launch into explanation, you've confirmed that their opinion matters, that their judgment has weight, that you're concerned about their assessment of you. Your defense, no matter how articulate, reinforces their position as arbiter of your worth. Silence, by contrast, refuses the entire premise. It communicates that you don't recognize their authority to judge you, that their accusations don't merit response, that you're so secure in yourself that external judgment is simply irrelevant. Emotionally, watching someone refuse to defend themselves triggers profound disorientation in the accuser. They've fired a shot expecting a reaction, expecting scrambling justification or angry denial. What they encounter instead is nothing. Their accusation lands in silence and dies there, unanswered and therefore unvalidated. This creates a psychological void that the accuser must fill themselves, often leading them to escalate, to try harder to provoke response, which only makes them look more desperate while you remain unmoved. The discipline required to maintain this silence is extraordinary because the urge to defend is primal. It's tied to social survival instincts, to the deep fear that unjustified accusations will be believed if not countered. But this fear is a trap. In reality, your defensive explanations rarely convince people who have already decided to think poorly of you, and they're unnecessary for people who know you. The only people your defense serves are those who are uncertain. And even for them, silence often works better than defense because it demonstrates such complete security that the accusation seems absurd by contrast. The power of strategic non-defense extends beyond individual interactions to your entire social positioning. When people learn that accusing you gets no response, that judging you produces no defensive reaction, that questioning you yields only silence, they stop doing it. Not because they respect you less, but because they respect you more. They recognize that you're operating from a different framework, one where their judgment simply doesn't penetrate. This recognition reorganizes the social dynamic entirely, placing you above rather than within their judgment. Strategic silence in the face of accusations also forces observers to make their own determinations rather than being influenced by your defensive narrative. When you defend yourself extensively, you're essentially telling people what to think about the accusation. When you remain silent, observers must decide for themselves based on what they know of you and the credibility of the accuser. This often works in your favor because people who know you will dismiss baseless accusations without needing your help, while your silence prevents you from appearing desperate or guilty through over-explanation. Silence as psychological warfare. Beyond refusing defense, strategic silence operates as an active weapon that destabilizes, unnerves, and ultimately dominates interactions without a single word. When others are compulsively filling space with words, your silence creates a vacuum that they experience as oppressive. They feel pressure to fill it, to explain themselves, to justify their positions to someone who hasn't even challenged them. Your wordlessness becomes a mirror that forces them to confront themselves without the distraction of verbal sparring. The psychology of silence as weapon involves understanding that humans are deeply uncomfortable with it. Silence in social situations triggers anxiety because it represents uncertainty, because people cannot tell what you're thinking, because the absence of feedback feels like withholding of approval. This discomfort puts enormous pressure on others to break the silence, to seek your response, to try to elicit some reaction that confirms their impact on you. When you refuse to relieve this pressure, when you simply maintain silence, they begin to unravel. Emotionally, sustained silence from someone who should be responding creates escalating anxiety and self-doubt. The person speaking begins to question themselves. Is what I'm saying stupid? Are they judging me? Do they disagree but won't say so? Should I stop talking? This internal monologue is far more damaging than anything you could say because it's generated entirely by their own mind in response to your absence of input. You've weaponized their own psychology against them without speaking a word. The tactical deployment of silence requires calibration. Used indiscriminately, it can read as rudeness or social incompetence. Used strategically, in response to provocations, to manipulative questions, to attempts to draw you into unnecessary debate, it becomes devastatingly effective. The key is that your silence must feel deliberate rather than awkward, must communicate choice rather than inability. This is achieved through body language and presence that remain engaged and attentive while words remain absent. You're not checked out. You're present, listening, simply choosing not to speak. The compounding effect of consistent strategic silence is that people begin to value your words enormously when you do speak. If you talk constantly, your words lose all weight. If you speak only when you have something meaningful to say, people listen with full attention when you break silence. This creates a dynamic where your rare utterances carry disproportionate impact, while others' constant chatter fades into background noise. You've created scarcity around your words, and humans always value what's scarce. Silence also prevents you from revealing information that could be used against you, from committing to positions prematurely, from saying things you'll later regret. The person who talks constantly inevitably says things they shouldn't, reveals weaknesses, makes promises they can't keep, commits to positions they later wish they hadn't. Your silence protects you from all these self-inflicted wounds while forcing others to reveal themselves completely as they fill the void you've created. The power of unmoved presence. While others react, explain, justify, and perform, the person who has mastered silence maintains a presence that is simply there, unmoved by provocation, unshaken by criticism, unaffected by attempts to draw them into drama or debate. This unmoved quality is deeply unsettling because it suggests a center so strong that external turbulence cannot reach it. It demonstrates that you cannot be baited, cannot be manipulated through emotional provocation, cannot be made to lose composure. The psychology of unmoved presence involves developing such internal stability that you genuinely don't feel the pull to respond to every stimulus. This isn't suppression of reaction. It's the absence of reaction because you're operating from such clarity about what deserves your energy that most provocations simply don't register as significant. You're not fighting the urge to respond. You're not battling to maintain composure. You're simply unmoved because what's happening around you doesn't touch what's solid within you. Emotionally, encountering someone who cannot be moved triggers both respect and fear. Respect because unmoved presence signals strength that goes beyond performance into genuine internal power. Fear because it means this person cannot be controlled through normal social mechanisms, cannot be predicted based on typical emotional patterns, cannot be manipulated through the levers that work on everyone else. This combination of respect and fear is the essence of command presence. The cultivation of unmoved presence requires extensive internal work. You must identify and resolve the insecurities that make you reactive, the fears that make you defensive, the needs for approval that make you explain yourself to people who haven't earned explanations. You must develop such secure self-knowledge that external opinions become genuinely irrelevant to your self-assessment. This isn't achieved through willpower alone, but through deep psychological work that reorganizes your relationship to external judgment. The demonstration of unmoved presence in high-pressure situations is where its power becomes undeniable. When everyone else is anxious, reactive, speaking rapidly and defensively, the person who remains calm and silent becomes the center of gravity. Authority flows to them not because they're claiming it, but because they're embodying it. People instinctively look to the calm person in crisis, defer to the unmoved person in chaos. Your silence and stillness in moments when others are fractured and frantic marks you as the one who can handle what's happening. Unmoved presence also communicates that you have options, that you're not desperate for any particular outcome from this interaction, that you can walk away at any moment without loss. This perceived abundance creates attraction and respect because people are drawn to those who don't need them, who are choosing to be present rather than clinging desperately to the interaction. Your silence signals that you're evaluating whether this interaction is worth your words, and that evaluation puts others in the position of proving their worth to you rather than you proving yours to them. The mystery of withheld information. Strategic silence extends to information management, to the deliberate withholding of details about yourself, your thoughts, your plans. While most people overshare in attempts to build connection or prove their worth, the silent strategist understands that mystery generates more interest and respect than transparency. Every piece of information you volunteer is leverage you've given away, ammunition you've provided, power you've transferred from yourself to others. The psychology of information withholding involves recognizing that people assign value and interest based on scarcity. When you freely offer everything about yourself, when you're an open book eager to be read, you eliminate the motivation for others to pursue understanding. You've made yourself fully known and therefore fully exhausted. There's no discovery left, no mystery to unravel, no depths to explore. By contrast, when you're selectively silent about your internal world, when you don't volunteer information unprompted, when you maintain privacy about your thoughts and plans, you create ongoing interest because there's always more to discover. Emotionally, encountering someone who doesn't overshare triggers curiosity and respect. Curiosity because the unknown is inherently fascinating, because humans are driven to solve puzzles and understand what's hidden. Respect, because selective silence about yourself demonstrates that you have boundaries, that access to your internal world is a privilege rather than a right, that you value yourself enough not to give everything away freely. The practical application involves resisting the urge to fill silence with self-disclosure, to prove your worth by listing your accomplishments, to build connection by revealing your vulnerabilities to people who haven't demonstrated they deserve that trust. Instead, you answer questions directly but minimally, volunteer nothing that wasn't asked for, maintain privacy about aspects of your life that are none of anyone's business. This creates a persona that seems deeper than it might actually be simply because so much remains unrevealed. The long-term effect of consistent information withholding is that people become invested in understanding you, in earning more disclosure, in being granted access to what you don't freely give everyone. This investment transforms relationship dynamics because instead of you pursuing their approval, they're pursuing your revelation. Instead of you trying to be interesting by talking, you become interesting by not talking. The mystery you maintain through selective silence becomes more compelling than any performance of interestingness could ever be. Information withholding also protects you from having your words twisted, from having casual statements used as commitments, from having your thoughts weaponized against you. The less you say, the less can be misquoted, misinterpreted, or used to manipulate you later. This protective function of silence becomes increasingly valuable in complex social and professional environments where everything you say can and will be used, however, serves others' interests. Silence as test and filter. The final dimension of strategic silence is its function as a test that reveals who people are and filters out those who can't handle your refusal to perform for them. When you maintain silence where others expect you to speak, when you don't fill space or seek approval or explain yourself, you trigger reactions that reveal true character. Some people will become uncomfortable and hostile, unable to handle the ambiguity. Others will become curious and respectful, intrigued by what you're protecting through silence. Your refusal to speak becomes a sorting mechanism that separates those worth your time from those who aren't. The psychology of silence as test involves understanding that people reveal themselves in how they handle your non-response. Those who need you to explain yourself, who get angry at your silence, who interpret your restraint as offense, are showing you that they need to control you through extracting explanations and justifications. Those who can sit comfortably with your silence, who don't need you to fill every pause, who respect your right to withhold, are showing you they're secure enough to handle your boundaries. Emotionally, being tested by someone's silence creates anxiety for those who rely on verbal feedback to feel secure in interactions. They need constant reassurance through words that everything is okay, that they're being received well, that they haven't offended. When this reassurance isn't forthcoming, when silence persists, they either grow in their ability to tolerate ambiguity or they reveal their need for constant validation. This revelation is valuable information about who can handle authentic relationship with someone who has boundaries versus who needs someone they can control through guilt. The filtering function of strategic silence operates automatically and continuously. People who cannot handle your silence self-select out of your life. They become uncomfortable, frustrated, or angry and remove themselves, saving you the effort of actively filtering them. Those who remain, those who respect your silence and even appreciate it, are people who can handle authentic relationship with someone who has genuine boundaries and internal sovereignty. This automatic filtering creates a social environment of higher quality with less effort than any active filtering could achieve. Silence also tests for emotional maturity and security. Secure people can handle silence without filling it with anxiety-driven chatter. They can sit with ambiguity without needing immediate resolution. They can respect your boundaries without taking them personally. Insecure people cannot tolerate any of this. They need constant verbal reassurance, constant engagement, constant explanation. Your silence reveals which category someone falls into instantly, providing information that might otherwise take months to discover. The test function extends to revealing people's true motivations. Those who are genuinely interested in you will wait through your silence, will respect your privacy, will value what you do share because they understand its scarcity. Those who are trying to use you, to extract value from you, to manipulate you will become frustrated by your silence because it prevents them from executing their agenda. They need your words, your explanations, your revelations, to find leverage points. Your silence denies them this access and forces them to reveal their frustration, their impatience, their true purpose in engaging with you. The mastery of strategic silence transforms you from someone who desperately fills space with words into someone whose rare utterances carry enormous weight, whose presence commands attention without demanding it, whose silence is more powerful than most people's speech. This transformation doesn't happen through simply stopping talking. It happens through developing such internal security that you genuinely don't need external validation, such clear self-knowledge that you don't require others' understanding, such strong boundaries that you don't feel compelled to justify yourself to those who haven't earned justification. When you embody these qualities, silence becomes natural rather than forced, powerful rather than awkward, commanding rather than weak. And in that silence, in that unmoved presence, in that refusal to perform or explain or justify, you discover a form of power that words could never create and that talking constantly actively destroys. You become someone who doesn't need to speak to be heard, doesn't need to explain to be understood by those who matter, doesn't need to defend to be respected. Your silence becomes the loudest statement you could make, a declaration of internal sovereignty that no amount of talking could ever communicate as effectively.